So I've mentioned that it used Dropbox. Now, what you will see, what I have is a folder where I have a folder with many subfolders. What you have with me, it's actually on my Dropbox, not your Dropbox, because remember I'm supervising many students using this method. So I have a common folder. So essentially that, I'll tell you what it contains: a meeting log, doc template, sample projects from different levels, and examples of how to refer to and number figures, which hopefully you've all done well in your voice and data assignments, so you already know how to do that anyway. How to references, how to cite references. So there's some general information in a common folder. And then every student has access to that folder. That's why it's called the common folder. Because the first year I did it, I was copying all these things into every single student's folder, and I was thinking, this is ridiculous. So the second year I did it, I thought, all right, I'll have a common folder now and give them all access. And then every student has got a separate folder in which me and the student can view, and nobody else can access. Okay. This is my computer showing my shared folders with students for this year. As you can see, I'm supervising many students. I have a folder that is common to all students, and this shows an example of the contents of the common folder, where I have examples of thesis, an example of a undergraduate project, components of a project proposal, how to document code, a generic plan for thesis, a pseudocode example, a template report, an ethical form, which means how you, every project needs to have an ethical form, because if you involve other people in your project, you have to do so in a way that is not harmful to those, and you have to give them the information. More details will be given about this later. We have a meeting log, which is the basis for our actual meetings, and the report template. So, you could also, this is an example of, say, a student's, a particular student who I share with. That's the example contents of their folder. So they would always have a meeting log, and I've just put their initials on them, just so that if I have more than one open at once, they don't clash with each other. Then they've got a copy, and it's a PDF copy because they've printed it off the ethics form, and it needs signatures, so it's had to be scanned back in. We ask the students to do initial proposals, which is what I'm going to ask you to do if you haven't already done. Then there's his actual proposal, which has been submitted and marked. And then there's various different things in there. So there's a picture of face detection on this one. There's a flow chart. There's a Gantt chart. There's a face detection picture again. Different algorithms. That can be whatever you put in there for me to see, basically. The point is when you come to a meeting, what you want to show me needs to be in there. Because how many times a student has come to a meeting and they're like, oh, I forgot. I mean, it used to be, I forgot my USB. Oh. And then you just sit there and you're like, well, what's the point of having the meeting then? If you can't talk, if you can't see it. You're looking at something different there.
I'm not thinking that because I lost my pen drive like that in the library.
Oh, I see, yeah.
When we are studying, why you lost?
You lost your pen drive.
I forgot it in the...
Well, you see, that's why they're using Dropbox. They're not using a pen drive. I actually started using Dropbox. I bought this pen drive. It's a lovely little pen drive, I thought. It looks really nice. Staff's University, nice and small.
Does it fit?
Give up. Oh, it does fit, yeah. It's a normal size.
Okay.
It didn't work. After a really short period of time, it stopped working. So I thought, well, if I can't trust a pen drive, I need to find another solution. So that's when I started using Dropbox. Okay. So we all have these experiences and we learn from them. Okay, I've mentioned that we have 30 minutes a week and use your time wisely. Be prepared. Turn up at the arranged time. Complete the meeting log. Now you'll see in the next slide or the slide after that what the meeting log essentially is. It's a Word document. You need to complete 2 sections, which is basically what have you done between this meeting and the previous meeting, and what would you like to talk about. So what's the agenda? And then we will then talk about what your progress, we'll talk about what you want to talk about, and then we'll talk about and agree what we think you should be doing for the next meeting. So it's very structured. And then, as I've mentioned already, you can either have a face-to-face meeting or a Skype meeting, and I've put my Skype ID there, and it's also at the beginning of this presentation, which I will email out. So this is an example meeting log here. I've just took a screenshot. So what we have is, if you look here, we've got a head. I've used, by the way, I don't know if you've used headings in Word yet. They're very, very useful because they can create a table of contents automatically. Yeah. All the numbering's done automatically. How many students I've had to teach this, I don't know. But hopefully I don't have to teach them for much longer. Okay, so this is essentially, I can see straight from this, we've had 15 meetings. Yeah? So the date of the meeting, what's been done. So he's calculated a path loss, he's worked in OpNet, and he's found out this and that. So I can say, okay, well, show me your calculation. Is it correct? Is it not correct? And then he's said, I couldn't understand this, I couldn't understand that. So then in the agenda, I then could give a talk about, okay, well, this is what happens here. That sort of set the scene for the meeting. So then at the very bottom of the page, it's 15.3 actions. So what I've asked him to do is, yes, you've done the calculation, and yes, you've done this, but please, can you put it in a format that can be put into your actual dissertation? Because the one thing that I keep saying on and on and on and on is, you are writing your dissertation from day one. Even though you're working on your project proposal, the stuff that you write for your project proposal is going to appear in some way, some shape or form in your final document. You will shape it and change it, but that is the skeleton of your final report. You will then work on your literature review, which will obviously be in it. Everything you do is going towards this document. Because the worst thing is you're doing this project and you're thinking, oh, I'm dreading writing it up. Oh, I'm dreading it. But if you're doing it as you're going along, you've essentially got your headings, but there's gaps in there, and you just like fill in the gaps. So it's a piecemeal thing, and you don't feel like it's such a big task. And as I've said, another big thing that I say to students is, don't feel like something has got to be in its finished state before showing it to the supervisor. Because it's better to show something half done than, oh, I haven't brought it today because it's not finished. You'd be amazed how many people say that. Okay. So we move on to project proposal, which I'll just give you an overview. Obviously it needs your project title, it needs your student ID, and always please include page numbers, because it's got, actually I haven't included that it needs a contents list there, and this is because I just wrote this over the last 2 days. Give an idea of what your project's about, and then a justification. So I want to do this project, but why do you want to do it? Is there a need for this project? Or what is the need for this project? If there isn't a need for the project, then why are we doing it? Could we do something better? Not on a personal level. I'm saying we now, but as we write, as you're writing, you don't write in we, do you? You say it, this, and the third person. Everybody knows hopefully what the third person is by now, because I keep going on about it. Okay. So then, what is your overall aim? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to simulate something? Are you researching into a new area? Are you building something? Is it a combination of the two? On which discipline? Okay. Then, once we've got to the aim, on to objectives. Now, objectives, do we know what objectives are without actually reading it straight off the screen? You need to fulfill your objectives. It's a step-by-step guide. This objective needs to be completed in order for the aim to be fulfilled. So usually the first objective, well, always the first objective is to research into the different areas. So if you're doing, say, some LTE or some, I can't remember your exact projects, 4G or I can't remember. Give me a topic.
Wireless sensing network.
Wireless sensor network. So one of the first things is like, well, what's a wireless sensor network? Where did they come from? What's the current state of the technology? What's the specifications? Especially with wireless sensor technology. What's the battery? What's the power like? Is it battery powered? Does it have mains power? How much? What size processor? What are the specifications? Then once we know all that, what are we actually going to do? Because your project, you have to implement something. Okay, so what is it that you're going to do? And then obviously once you've implemented something, you're going to have to test that to check that it does what it's supposed to do. And does it do what it should do, or is it just doing something but you haven't checked? You have to check. It's like, I don't know. It's like saying, right, an OpNet example. I'm generating this traffic with this distribution. At the receiver, am I receiving that traffic with that distribution? If I am not receiving that traffic with that distribution, and there's obviously no errors and whatever's in the middle, then there is something wrong with the system. So we call this validation. So we have to say, well, basically, anyone can do a simulation or do an experiment and get some results. But do those results make sense? So we need sort of like a baseline usually. Let's say we're testing, I'll use another OpNet example. We're testing this scenario with no quality of service. A bit like we did in the lab. So there was no quality of service, we get results. Then we add in some quality of service and then the results change. So we usually have a baseline, then we make some changes, and then we see how the results are affected. Now, there are obviously costs and benefits of adding this extra thing in. Do the benefits outweigh the costs? If so, then it's worth doing. If not, then it's not worth doing. And all that discussion and analysis of your actual results all goes into your project. So it's not just about doing some kind of experiment, simulation, whatever, making a hardware, but it's about what the results I've got and how I've analysed them. And also, a good project is never finished. Good research is never finished. There's always something else to be done. So what we have to bear in mind is when you're doing your project, especially when you get to the implementation stage, it's like a prototype. You'll implement something that works. The amount of people that try and implement the most complex system and they go away and they try it and they say, this isn't working. You'll probably remember with OpNet and my MATLAB also, my simulation's not working. Where do you start looking? You don't know. So you have to start off simple, it works. Add a bit more complication in, it works, or it doesn't work. It doesn't work, well, the cause of the problem is with what I've just changed. No, it works, so that's fine. A bit more complication, so that you've always got a working system. So let's give an example. Say I've got a hand gesture recognition system. Okay, so in the end, I'm going to be recognising a hand in a moving image, in a video, say. So first of all, can I recognise a hand in a photograph? And then I add the complications in. So we have to think on different levels of the implementation, dependent on your project. I know I've gone off at a bit of a tangent there, but it's all related to projects. Okay, so you've said that you know what a Gantt chart is. I've just done my simple Gantt chart here, which shows the tasks. And I'm sure you all know that you can use Microsoft Project. But to be honest, it's a bit of overkill. Microsoft Project is used in industry quite a lot when, say, there are multiple people working on a single task. However, you're just working on your project yourself. So a simple something like that in Excel is fine. Because one thing that you'll find with Microsoft Project is, I don't know about you if you've used it, you'll have your tasks coming down on one page and it'll be landscape like this. And it'll be in days and it'll be in weeks, and you'll print it out. If you'll print it out, and you'll get like 10 sheets of paper, but they don't mean anything because you've got to glue up, you've got to sellotape them all together, and then if you're trying to read them, you're like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Because the last page, the tasks are on the first page. So how I've done it is your project is 24 weeks. You can choose whether to put week numbers or actual dates, and then just put the tasks and use colour. And then I've just put all these in purple to show like subtasks and overall tasks. And then say we're at the end of week 1 now, so that you can either use a border or you can actually draw it on. And then when you're at the end of week 1 now, have you done a third of subtask 1.1? Yes or no? If you have, make that a different colour. If you haven't, leave it the same colour. It's just a lot simpler. I'll just go back, and I've just put one at the bottom there. Students will automatically do, because they always do, or you always do, I'm not saying you will, but they always put everything one after another. Now, sometimes you could be doing 2 things simultaneously. Like, you might be getting a bit fed up of your literature review, so you want to have a bit of, I don't know whether to implement it in OpNet on MATLAB or hardware, so I'll just go off and think about the implementation whilst I'm still finishing off my literature review. So sometimes your implementation can actually start before the other one's finished, because you're talking about the general things. Maybe the actual algorithms that you're going to implement can't be decided, but the hardware part or the simulation platform can be investigated before the overall literature review is finished. And it's all about working smart and not leaving your implementation too late. Starting it as early as you can. Now, a lot of students have a big problem with this because they say they're not confident enough. They don't feel like they know the area. But you need to start and, well, there isn't a better word for it. Just play around with whatever you're going to do. With the hardware, with the software. Because there's a big difference, I know you've probably done undergraduate projects, there's a huge difference than being taught a module where you're being told that you need to do X, Y, and Z, than actually understanding the thing and thinking, right, I want to design something to do something. How do I go about it? It's a massive difference. So my advice would be to start having a go with the implementation side of things as soon as, because if I'm blunt about it, that carries a lot more weight. Obviously, you've got to do your literature survey and you need to know the background and stuff, but what you've actually done, that's the interesting part. And it's such a shame because we supervise many project students and they're just really getting into the implementation side and the project's coming to an end and you're like, but this is the time when they could be doing so much more. So that's my advice on that.